you get long Bitcoin, amazing. You're not worried about the US dollar basically destroying itself. And you have a better value and opportunity for shareholders to see that you're committed to maintaining your treasury and not allowing it to basically be destroyed by inflation. So, MicroStrategy has been doing this for I don't know how many years, and people are paying them a premium for it. Why on earth wouldn't other companies do that as well? It's a completely sensible way of managing your treasury.
This content is brought to you by BitGo, which is one of the top crypto custodians in the crypto industry. BitGo works with many big companies and brands, such as Pantera Capital, Bitstamp, and Bitcoin IRA. Nike also selected BitGo to power its wallets for its NFTs. And BitGo has many great services, such as hot wallets, custodial wallets, self-managed cold wallets, and NFT wallets. Many institutions trust BitGo with its top-level security and incredible services, such as being able to deploy your capital while it's in custody, which includes lending, borrowing, trading, staking, DeFi access, and more. If you'd like to learn more about BitGo, please visit bitgo.com, link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and with me today is Russell Starr, who is the head of capital markets and the former CEO at DeFi Technologies. Russell, great to have you on.
No, I'm really excited to be on, and thanks a lot for the invite. I'm really looking forward to this.
So Russell, we got big news around DeFi Technologies this week with the company adopting Bitcoin as a treasury strategy. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of questions around that. And I'm sure many folks want to hear the details there. But before we get there, tell us about yourself, where you're from, where'd you grow up, and your professional background.
Look, born and raised in Calgary, so true Canadian. Ended up in Toronto, just my academic background. I have a master's in econometrics. I finished an MBA, started a PhD in econometrics. Always wanted to get into finance. So I'm kind of like the TradFi guy on this team. Really, really strong crypto team, and then sort of me on the TradFi side. And I really just got tired of being an institutional salesperson, institutional trader. I'd helped start a firm that's now pretty big called Echelon. And I was looking more to help really interesting companies grow. And I often jokingly say that I kind of bought my way into this company. So the CEO, the current CEO, his name is Olivier Roussy Newton. He created Hive Blockchain, and the other founder created a company called XBT Provider, which is actually the first ever Bitcoin ETP in the world. And it's now known as CoinShares. And, I was kind of a gold guy. I was looking at how fiat currencies are just being destroyed by governments. And so gold, up until the advent of Bitcoin, was kind of the only way to look at that. And then when I found DeFi with the team, the concept of literally wrapping these crypto protocols in traditional equity wrappers so that, mom and pop, grandma, aunt and uncle, all these people who are really honestly terrified of trying to buy these tokens on these unregulated exchanges. This company basically eliminates that and gives you the ability to buy. Well, now we have 23 ETPs listed in Europe. So, just love the concept of building companies and love this new ecosystem whose entire goal, and again, I never want to put words in the founders of Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, whatever, but really the goal is to destabilize traditional capital markets. I love that. It's incredible. And to protect investors from destruction of fiat.
For sure. So, you mentioned you're a TradFi guy, and where along the journey did you discover Bitcoin, and what was your aha moment?
So it honestly, I had a lot of buddies who were like, I bought some Bitcoin at $100 or 3,000 or whatever, and I made 50 grand or $1 million. And I never really took it seriously. Honestly, I was working with and helping a gold company at the time. And everybody would joke, how do you buy your partner or your wife or your girlfriend or whomever a Bitcoin necklace? Like there's nothing tangible about it. But as I watched more and more capital flows go into it, I was like, look, I'm a little bit terrified of these unregulated exchanges. And let's be honest, that's where a lot of the frauds have occurred. It hasn't been that Bitcoin's flawed or Ethereum's flawed. It's more that there are bad actors. There's always going to be bad actors when there's as much money at play as this. But this company had, like I said, that sort of different perspective of, let's wrap Bitcoin in an ETP, let's wrap Ethereum in an ETP, and let's make it available to the masses. And that's literally what Johan did with XBT Provider. It's literally what Ollie did with Hive. He was trying to give people the ability to get long Ethereum at the time, in a traditional equity vehicle. And we all know Hive has become like one of the best and biggest out there.
Now let's talk about DeFi technologies. For those who don't know, tell us about the history, the services, who you work with, and so forth.
Yeah. So like I said, I think it would have been 2020, 2021, I was pitched this as an idea. The stock was only like 8, 9, 10, 11 cents. And it really hadn't even started what it was meant or wanted to do, which was ultimately to basically wrap almost everything in a traditional equity wrapper. And I just bought, millions of shares. It did really well. Ultimately, I stepped in and was the CEO. Ollie, though, as a founder, or Johan, they were the logical guys to be CEOs. So when it was time for them to take over, obviously that was a natural step. But I just, like I was saying, I struggled with the concept of just being long Bitcoin. I struggled with the concept of just being long Ethereum. That being said, I was probably wrong. I probably would have made a lot of money if I'd just gone long Bitcoin or gone long Ethereum. But just in my mind, I was like, look, if I'm going to actually believe in this ecosystem, and I really do believe in it now. Like, I actually think, as you move forward, 2, 3, 5, 10% of the global gold flow is going to go into this as a sector. But as I did more research, this is growing 2 times faster than the internet. It's going to destabilize the way we do traditional banking. Like, now, whenever I send a wire through my bank, I'm like, you guys are taking like $3,000. Literally, you're just pushing a button. Right. And so the more it's almost a counterintuitive thought process, but the more I watch the SEC battle crypto as an ecosystem in the US, the more I believed in it. Because the only reason they're doing it is because they're terrified of what it's going to do to the US dollar, and they're terrified of what it's going to do to the traditional banking system. And to me, that's a really appealing investment thesis. So I hope I answered your question, but that's how I got to here. And like I said, the 2 partners, the people who run this company or created this company in 2017, they're crypto royalty, right? Ollie's well known. Johan's very well known. And when you dig into investment theses for any company, you want management to be very, very credible. Ours is. And you want the investment thesis to be very, very robust. Ours is. Like, we're only trading at 3 times profits. And if you look at what the average on the S&P is, the average S&P earnings multiple is 20, and we're trading at 3. So even if you just look at it from that perspective, you have a great investment thesis. And that's why basically it's the only crypto asset that I'm invested in, and I own a lot of it. And I own a lot of it because really, truly, we should be at 20 times earnings. That's typical. And really, truly, this company is giving you a diversified way of playing not just Bitcoin or Ethereum, but, XRP, Toncoin, Chainlink. If you go look at all of the products we have, and, I think by the end of 2025, we'll probably have between 60 or 80 ETPs that all fall under the umbrella of DeFi. And that's the other investment thesis. How do you know what the next Solana is going to be? I don't know what it is. Do you know what it is? When we bought Pomp's research company, Reflexivity, they have a really good idea of what it's going to be. But I'd rather be exposed to all of the potential winners through one company. And that's what you have with DeFi. So
you guys mainly have ETPs, which, in the United States, we call them ETFs. Are they spot or are they futures, or do you have both?
All spot. It's funny if you look at when Gensler was challenging Grayscale's application to become an ETF, the judge was like, "Hang on, you guys are allowing a futures ETF, but why aren't you allowing a spot ETF?" I mean, really, the futures ETF is just a derivative on top of another derivative. I'd way rather play from an investment thesis the spot exposure. But when you look at it from a hedging perspective, you may want to look at the futures. But I don't want to get into all that sort of complicated trading strategies.
Sure. So I remember Canada being one of the first countries to launch spot, well, you guys call it ETPs. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the United States recently, and then Hong Kong joined the party in London, Thailand. So it seems like there's game theory playing out here. With Canada being one of the first countries, was there interest in the Canadian ETPs after the US ETFs got approved?
So that's a really good question, and I'll answer it the way I typically answer it. The Canadian and the U.S. regulators are out to lunch. Um, Basically, you have the rest of the world, especially Europe. Like, part of the reason we're in Europe is because Europe has embraced crypto as a potential, world class opportunity. When you look at why Canada and the US are so anti-crypto, and they really are anti-crypto, like, they make your life a nightmare from an audit perspective, from a regulatory perspective. It's actually more difficult to be a crypto entity in Canada or the US than it is a cannabis entity. That's how crazy it is. So I think they're missing out on the investment thesis. And, let's be honest, Canada just basically follows what the US is doing. And you're now seeing government in the US recognize that they're losing a major opportunity to be a world leader in the crypto ecosystem. And they're giving that ball and that opportunity to the rest of the world. So our investment thesis was, look, what Canada does do well is it does launch risk assets well. So whether it's junior natural resource companies, junior, it's kind of known for that as a global exchange. Um, you can list in Canada and do well, but ultimately your next step or the biggest goal is going to be either to get on a more relevant global exchange, and typically that's like the NYSE, the Nasdaq. That's what sort of, let's call it the baby companies do to become teenagers or adults. So that's ultimately one of our goals, and we've press released that. And once the stock gets to 2 US, which I'm very confident it will, and quite higher than that, just because that revenue and earnings multiple is so low, and always funds and retail are looking for those divergences in valuation, because that's how we make money in this game. But no, we ultimately want and will be in Canada more and will be in the US more, but we're not going to do it until the regulatory authorities really join the rest of the world with embracing, honestly, like, if you can think about it sort of as a more of a challenging discourse, can you imagine what would have happened to the internet as it was trying to grow if the US basically said, "Nah, we don't want that"? Like, that's kind of the way this is going. And the difference, I guess, between the internet and crypto is crypto is so destabilizing from a US dollar perspective. And so it's more of a government, it's more of a political challenge, I guess, is the best way to put it, than actually a regulatory challenge. So yeah, it was more, we have a great chance to list something. Ollie's Canadian, I'm Canadian, Johan's Swedish. So that's why a lot of our products have had to start and trade a lot in the Nordic growth market. But no, Canada and the US really, they need to join the global party and be more relevant and be leaders and embrace this, rather than continuously put challenges and hurdles in front of companies such as ourselves to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully they can get that sorted out soon. Here in the United States, we're seeing some movement with crypto regulation bills, where
Yeah.
we've had the Democrats start to side with the Republicans to get this
Yep.
done. It still has to go through the Senate, still has to make it to the president, and it may happen until 2025, but there's at least some momentum. There's some life, some activity happening here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just look. I mean, basically, they had a bill which it was a bipartisan bill where the Senate and House all embraced it and wanted the big banks to be able to custody these assets, and then of course Biden vetoes it, probably because he doesn't know anything about it. That's my guess.
Yeah.
He probably had some advisor saying, "Oh, this is bad for the U.S.
Elizabeth
dollar," but
Warren. Yeah.
yeah, but this like the way often what I say to investors is because there's a lot of people who still like if you look at Morgan Stanley, they won't let their clients buy the Bitcoin ETF and they won't let their clients buy a company like ours. It's still backwards. It doesn't make any sense. Like, shouldn't you be embracing something that's going to help people make money and help people avoid inflation, right? Like a lot of people who are long US exchanges don't understand how much they have to make on an annual basis just to avoid basically the what's happening due to inflation to the US dollar. You kind of have to make another 10 to 12% every year on your portfolio to avoid basically the US dollar and the Canadian dollar and all of the printing of the money destroying value.
Mm. Now, speaking of destroying value and trying to outpace inflation,
Yep.
DeFi Technologies adopted a Bitcoin treasury strategy, which is
Yep.
pretty incredible. We're seeing that trend amongst companies, not just in the United States, but globally. Tell us about this. Why and how are you executing that?
So why to me is pretty obvious. Like I'm trying to remember the quote, but someone was basically saying, don't invest in Bitcoin. It's going to destabilize. It was probably Gensler. I'm just guessing. We don't want you to invest in Bitcoin because it's bad. It's risky. And I'm in my mind, like I have a master's in econometrics, started my PhD. I'm like, you guys have this all backwards. Like inflation and printing of your money supply, that is destroying the US dollar. Bitcoin is actually could be a savior. Like you're looking at what some of the Latin American countries are doing, adopting Bitcoin as their de facto currency. That's kind of how we think. So we have basically about 51 million US on our balance sheet, just free capital. And if you're looking at a world where effectively every government is printing dollars to help sustain the economic recovery, whatever you want. But the definition of inflation is actually the printing of money. So if you actually think and look at what's going on in the US, inflation is absolutely rampant. It's just that government has chosen to measure it in different ways, but truly from a pure economic perspective. And so with that amount of money on our balance sheet, we were like, this doesn't make any sense. The US dollar, the government is out of control. The debt on a monthly basis, the interest that is needed to just service the debt is trillions, right? You're looking at conceivably the demise of an entire, the US dollar has been the de facto like stable currency for settlement of oil, gold, everything like that.
Right.
Now you've got the printing of money, you've got inflation, and what better way to protect your balance sheet than to buy some Bitcoin? And the beauty of it for us as well is that we have a relationship and a partnership with Core. And the best way you can look at Core, I recommend everybody basically Google Core DAO, DAO. And you'll see kind of their white paper, their thought process. I simplified and sort of say they're kind of like a layer 2 on Bitcoin, but you can generate 15, 16% yield on your Bitcoin, just actually staking it, lending it in the Bitcoin, on the Bitcoin ecosystem through Core. So you get long Bitcoin, amazing. You're not worried about the US dollar basically destroying itself. And you have a better value and opportunity for shareholders to see that you're committed to maintaining your treasury and not allowing it to basically be destroyed by inflation. So, MicroStrategy has been doing this for I don't know how many years, and people are paying them a premium for it. Why on earth wouldn't other companies do that as well? It's a completely sensible way of managing your treasury.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with regards to, you mentioned you had 51 million in cash and reserves. How much of that 51 million are you allocating to Bitcoin? Is it 25%, 50%? And what's the buying process? Are you like buying all at once, or are you dollar cost averaging over time?
So we have 110 Bitcoin as well on top of the 51. So we actually have closer to 60.
Hmm.
And I was honestly just discussing the concept of actually buying substantially more to protect our treasury. We don't really worry about sort of the dollar cost averaging perspective on that. It's our view, and I think it's many people's view, that post halving, Bitcoin is likely going a lot higher. I think with all of the inflows you're seeing from the Bitcoin ETFs, that provides a really good base upon which to build that next ascent. And then you saw today that it looks like inflation is a little bit more subdued in the US, which also puts a bid in Bitcoin. So we just bought the 110, I think it was last week. We're looking at allocating more and more and more of that capital. But what you need to do as a company like ours, and I was just pitching a very, very big retail book this morning. They had close to $1 billion in their book, which is substantial. They have nothing in crypto. They haven't allocated one penny. And I was like, look, you're invested in gold. Great. Gold's been on a tear, but I don't know why you wouldn't look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is stealing a lot of those gold flows. And if you can stake or lend that on top of it and generate, whether you're using core or just a simple lending strategy of 2 to 4% on a lending strategy, you're actually making money on top of that. So my view is that you're going to see more and more companies look at that as a solution. But the other thing that we're looking at, and I mentioned this to you as well, we're going to do close to 120 million US in profits in Q2. Most companies in the US off of that amount of profits trade at about a $2 billion market cap. That's that 20 times earnings. So if you were looking at the entire S&P, it trades basically at 20 times earnings. We're going to do 100, let's just simplify it, call it 100 in Q2. And this is all public information. We've press released it. Off of Q2 alone, we should have a $2 billion market cap. And here we are sitting at about a $500 million market cap. So the other thing we're looking at is we're so cheap. Maybe we should be buying our own shares back. And so we actually press released that we might also be buying our shares back because it's a crazy disconnect. And that, I always say to people, if everything worked efficiently, none of us would be doing this because we wouldn't make any money. Everything would be trading at the price it should be trading at. When you see these valuation disconnects, that's the opportunity. So, we have guys like Pomp who writes us up pretty regularly. He's a shareholder. We own his research company. Obviously, there's a relationship there, but he's a really smart guy. And even he's screaming, from the top of the trees with a megaphone, guys, you got to get long DeFi, like at 3 times, 4 times. Even if we were at 10 times earnings or $1 billion market cap, which is a double from here, we'd still have to double again to get to the S&P average. So yeah, we'll add more Bitcoin, but we also might be buying our shares back, just depending on what the cost of capital is. But it's a happy problem to have.
Sure. Now, how are you custodying that Bitcoin? And maybe this is along the lines of the ETPs. How are those respective assets being custodied as well?
Yeah, great question. Just because of the experience, obviously, that Johan and Ollie have in this entire Web 3.0 world, we basically only deal with the top 3 or 4 custodians. So that's Coinbase, Anchorage, that's Fidelity. But what's happened recently with us, because our assets have grown so much, we now run basically our own validators. So we don't even have to send or custody anything. We just carry it on our own validator node. So we've eliminated that as a risk, as a potential risk for the company. But if we were going to custody, it would be the Fidelities, the Anchorages of the world. And we also do own, I think we own about 5% of a private Swiss bank that also has all the crypto licenses. We will custody with them as well. But again, it's with the best of the best. We just have the luxury of not having to do that now.
Wow. Now, I read that there is a subsidiary called Valor Incorporated.
Yeah.
Tell us about that subsidiary, and is that handling any of the crypto assets? What's the AUM and things like that?
Yeah. So Valor is our ETP provider. So that is where we launch all of our ETPs. DeFi owns 100% of Valor. We own 100% of Reflexivity. We own about 5% of that crypto Swiss bank, which we think is worth substantially more than we listed at, just because we invested when they only had $1 billion in AUM and they have close to $3 billion. Then we have a venture portfolio where, along with Pomp, we'll take small bets on new and upcoming coins like SEI, Hashadera, that kind of stuff. And really, truly, Pomp and Will are kind of the brainchilds behind that. But the vast majority of all of the revenue we generate comes from Valor, and Valor is where we list all those ETPs. So, we just listed. I think it was Hashadera. We have a core ETP. I think that's now listed. Those are all created, listed. All the prospectuses are filed through Valor, and Valor's primary jurisdiction and source of business right now is Europe. But if you go look through our historical press releases, you'll see that we're actually looking to expand in the Middle East. Again, this is where it gets crazy. Like, why isn't the US embracing this? So here we are. We'd love to offer all our products to everyone in the US, but until the US regulators get their heads on straight, same thing with Canada, what's the point? So we're going to be opening and passporting all our prospectuses to the Middle East. We're doing that for Asia. So honestly, all of that math that I gave you is based off of what we currently have. But if you were to look at like Coinbase or Robinhood, they're trading at 30 or 40 times earnings because they're in high growth mode. You probably should be strapping a 30 or 40 onto our multiple. And again, it's only like 3 or 4 right now because we are in growth mode. And can you imagine? We only have 23 ETPs now. But if at the end of 2025 we have 60 or 70, our AUM will be massive. And that's how we generate our revenue and basically provide upside to shareholders who own DeFi.
Now, you mentioned different altcoins that you guys have ETPs for. XRP,
Yeah.
you mentioned HBAR, Hedera. Do you also have like baskets? Like here's the top 10,
Yep.
top 5 and things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a bunch of baskets. I think we have 7 or 8 of them. We have a Bitcoin yield product that gives, this one's crazy. Whenever you buy a Bitcoin ETF in the US, you're paying BlackRock or Grayscale or whomever has launched that ETF, you're paying them between 1 and 2.5 or 3%. We actually, with our Bitcoin yield product, pay you 5.65%. So you can get long a Bitcoin ETF and be paid a yield. I think that has the potential to destabilize the entire ETF market. But yeah, we have basket products. We have basically for anybody who believes or wants to hedge out Bitcoin exposure, we have a Bitcoin short ETP, and you'll see more and more creative products. Like if you really think through our mantra, our Bitcoin Zero, we call it Bitcoin Zero because we charge no management fees on it, and our Ethereum Zero, those were kind of the start of this company. But Solana a year and a half ago only had like 10 or 20 million in it. Now it has close to 300 or 400 billion in it. The reason why is Solana's gone crazy. But often what I say to people is, how and who do you think the next winner is going to be? Is it SEI? Is it ICP? Is it Hashadera? I don't know the answer, but I can actually get exposure to all of those by owning DeFi. So yeah, we'll have basket products. We have 2 or 3 of them right now. We'll have index products. We have 1 index product. So we're like a baby BlackRock or a baby Vanguard or anyone who of who has tons of ETFs, whether it's gold, oil, 2 times gold up, 2 times gold down, whatever. We're that, just much smaller, growing very, very quickly. And as I often say, take any of those, our revenue model is their revenue model on steroids, because we average about 10% yield. They average about 1 or 2% yield.
Mm. Um, with regards to, and I think you may have touched on this, with the ETPs that are available in Europe, given that there's been, once again, the approval in the US, Hong
Yeah.
Kong, London,
Yeah.
have you guys started to see a lot of interest and maybe from institutional investors, wealth
Yeah.
managers who are like, okay, we want to get exposure. We see what's the writing on the wall and what's on the horizon here. Maybe you can tell us who's been engaging with you guys to try to get
Yeah.
it.
So yes, ticket size has gone way up for all of the products we have. And is that an institution? We can't tell you with 100% certainty, but typically when you're getting $5 or $10 million orders, it is moving into the institutional realm.
Right.
But the reality is, and what I like again, sort of everybody needs to remember this, and basically the crypto natives such as yourself, like people who really are intimate with the crypto universe, they often forget that the vast majority of this world, A, avoids crypto, or B, even if they're not avoiding it, they kind of don't know anything about it and they don't even really know how to get into it.
Yeah.
And when you have a regulator like the Canadian regulator or the US regulator who really is making it hard for anyone to truly embrace this, right? Everywhere else in the world they are. It creates another level of uncertainty. So once the Bitcoin ETF was approved, that basically validated our business model. And you've seen our stock do very well. You've seen our assets grow. But we're only like, I don't even know if we're in inning one. We might only be in the first pitch of the first inning in terms of where this ecosystem can go. Because remember, growing 2 times faster than the internet, but when you're growing 2 times faster than the internet and call it 90 or 95% of the population still hasn't or doesn't or won't get exposure to it,
Mm.
you got a long way to go. And so that's why I'm so excited about DeFi. It's why I'm so excited about the ecosystem because you're seeing the likes of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and senators and Congress people. You're seeing them realize, hang on a second, my constituents actually want this.
Yeah.
Why are we fighting it? Like why do we have an SEC chairman who basically will take a losing battle to the Supreme Court over and over and over again? Why are we doing this? All we're doing is basically, we're standing up like a little tiny doll in front of a steamroller and hoping that the doll is going to stop the steamroller. If crypto was going to go down, it would have gone down with FTX, Alameda, Three Arrows Capital. It didn't, and so that for me is sort of vindication for this ecosystem, and quite frankly, a really big sort of warning shot across everyone's bow. People need to get exposure to this, and the next leg to that is what you're also seeing is you're seeing funds who are getting exposure to it and who have taken the risk, if you want to call it that, to buy an ETF or get long Bitcoin or Solana or whatever. They're vastly outperforming all of the other portfolios.
Yeah.
And so if you actually want to keep up with some of these funds and some of these portfolios that are just, they're almost vertical because yeah, you've seen Bitcoin do pretty well, but we're really just hovering around the previous all-time high. Where's that next leg? You listen to Cathie Wood. I don't know if I espouse her, $1.5 million price on Bitcoin, but it's theoretically possible.
Yeah.
Right. If you had the world commit 10% of their capital to crypto prices would be up tenfold, 20-fold. And so that's what the potential opportunity is. And that's why, it's funny, all my TradFi brethren who are like, nah, I'm going to buy gold or I'm going to stick to copper or whatever, they're missing out on what may be one of the most exciting trade opportunities since the internet. And that's what I think people need to realize. And that's what the TradFi people really need to realize. There are people becoming millionaires, 100 millionaires, billionaires, because they're looking, they're learning, and they understand the potential application to destabilize not just governments destroying their currencies, but also the banking system, right? Like I mentioned it, like, could you imagine if you could send a wire by pushing a button? That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is going to do.
Absolutely. And, as you're saying that, where there's some folks who are still on the fence or that they're not maybe living up to their fiduciary responsibility of making the greatest return or preserving
Yep.
as much of their purchasing power with cash on their balance sheet and so forth. But eventually, I feel like they're all going to capitulate and jump in, maybe
Yeah.
because like what you guys are doing, buying Bitcoin,
Yeah.
putting it on your balance sheet, and then you have these ETPs and ETFs now available globally. Those who are paying attention and like, wait a minute, I need to get exposure, are
Yeah.
going to do well, and then the laggards, I don't know, maybe they're going to lose market share, lose clients, things like that.
Well, it's funny. For a long time in the crypto winter, people were just tearing me to shreds because when DeFi last was trading at like $3-4, I would often say to people, look, can you imagine if you went back 20-30 years and you had a chance to take 5 grand or 10 grand and buy Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple? You'd be retired and your yacht would be like the size of a football field. Like that's how much money you would make.
Hmm.
But the reality is that if you just look at Amazon or even Microsoft, these were guys with a dream working out of garages, right? Like, oh my gosh, are you really going to pitch me some guy who's in his dad's garage trying to ship me packages? That was Amazon, right? I'm not saying that every opportunity in this ecosystem is going to be in Amazon. But what I am saying is that's what the potential upside is.
Yeah.
You could look back 5-10 years from now. And again, there's always risk associated with any investment, but you could look back 5 or 10 years from now and be like, wow, I watched that podcast. I should have bought DeFi. Or you can be a really smart, sensible, savvy investor and go, hang on a second, this is trading at 3 or 4 times profits. Everything else is trading at 20, and their comps are trading at like 30 or 40. I'm going to buy 10,000 shares for 50,000 or 100,000, whatever your appetite is. And again, no guarantee, but if this ecosystem is going to do what I think it's going to do, and you think it's going to do, and look, my firm belief is we are there, and it's going to happen. You have life changing wealth opportunities to invest in right now. And that to me is really exciting. And yeah, you can buy a copper company, a gold company, or, buy some Amazon or Nvidia, amazing companies. They're all amazing. But this ecosystem, I think, has the opportunity to provide people 100 baggers, 1,000 baggers. And honestly, I think DeFi, given how much money we're making, like this isn't a pie in the sky company hoping to make money. It only costs us $10 million to run this company. So when I said 100 million in Q2, our profits are basically $90 million. So if we made 150 for the year, 140 million in profit. That's staggering. And again, like it's a 400 million US market cap making 120 or 150 million. And if we keep on growing, those numbers are going to be a thing of the past. So it's fascinating. It's like psychology, risk, and opportunity all, in one basket. And to me, that's a really exciting investment thesis.
Now, what's on your oh, by the way, this is recorded, so I'll make the edits.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, all good.
What's on the roadmap? What's on the remainder of your roadmap for this year?
So more products, and I can't really tell you exactly which ones they're going to be until we press release them. But we're at 23 products now. We'll finish the year probably minimum 30, maybe 35. The reason I'm confident about that is when crypto winter and Terra Luna and FTX were happening, the regulators were like, I'm not sure. Now they've seen how stable these products are, how much money they can make as an exchange off of them. So our time to turn around a new product is really only about 4 weeks now, whereas before it could be like 3 months. So a lot more new products. We've got a ton of cash on our balance sheet, and we do see some really appealing M&A opportunities. So who knows? You could see us embark on something interesting. One of my big worries is when you're only trading at 3 or 4 times profits, and you've got these big players like BlackRock, Fidelity, Coinbase, Robinhood. All of them are going to start seeing the amount of money we make. They could pay us, 300% premium it would still be a take under. Like that's how perplexing our valuation is right now. So who knows whether someone takes a run at us? That would be amazing. And for the record, that's not on the table. Nothing's happened. I just, I'm a TradFi guy, and when you see that much money trading at that little multiple, it becomes appetizing. We've press released we're expanding into the Middle East. That's going to be huge. We're expanding into Asia. We're launching our products on the London Stock Exchange. They've started to embrace ETPs in the crypto space. Hopefully, the U.S. government, like you've got basically Trump's now embracing crypto.
Yeah.
Whether Trump wins or not, you've got the Congress and the Senate really becoming more supportive of this. And to me, it's only a matter of time before Biden or whoever comes in has to do an about face.
Right.
So there's a ton of amazing stuff that could happen. It's just our job to create as much value for our investors, launch as many of these products as we can, really try to take the world by storm, and then ultimately gravitate some of these products to Canada and the US once the regulators get their heads screwed on straight.
I'd love to get your thoughts on tokenization, and are you guys planning to do anything with tokenization?
Really good question. Look, it is something that will be a part or a piece of the future. It's not something that we're aggressively moving into. I think there's still a few hurdles or challenges in front of it, but don't be surprised if you don't see us launch a token type ETP. Absolutely, we're looking at doing an AI type ETP as well, because if you really spend some time looking at DeFi and what it is at its core. So the single biggest trend in the world right now from a capital market perspective is ETFs, the ETFification of everything. So whether it's gold, oil, baskets, indexes, everybody's moving towards that. And then one of the other biggest trends in the world is crypto. And within crypto is obviously tokenization. We hurdle both of those. And so, do you want to be a market leader in tokenization? I don't think so. I think you'd rather be the second or the third player, wait and see what happens, and then create an ETP on it. But yes, I do think ultimately, people are going to buy houses. They'll tokenize a house, it'll go onto a chain, you won't need a realtor, and you'll be able to buy a house or a car or whatever. I really do think that's a trend and somewhere where we're going. I just don't know if we want to be at the forefront of it because really, truly, what are we? We're a fintech company who's embraced crypto and ETFs.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And a lot of these things are still going through trial and error to figure out what's, logical, what has staying power and what, people will use. But that absolutely makes sense. I know we're coming up on time, so I have some wrap-up questions here for you.
Sure.
First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
I'm a sports lover, so it'd be some sort of a World Series of like NFL, hockey, baseball. Like I think that would be super cool. So that would be my metaverse focus. I don't know if it's what other people would do, but I think that would be super cool. And you've seen concerts in the metaverse.
Yeah.
I think world sporting events would be really cool.
I would love that. I'm a big sports fan. So like if I can't travel to a game or something, if I can
exactly
on my Oculus and get that full immersive experience.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be cool? That'd be amazing.
That'd be amazing. Rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Favorite musician or band?
Oh, I'm gonna get roasted for this. I'm a little bit old school, but I loved Hall and Oates and Led Zeppelin, so people can laugh at me. But my newer ones would be probably Tame Impala and Coldplay.
Man, I got Hall and Oates, I got Led Zeppelin on my playlist. I listen to everything, but you can't. I mean, how can you hate on those bands?
Well, it's just maybe I look. I'm one of the most uncool people in the world, and that probably didn't help me out. So,
favorite movie?
I loved Dune too. I mean, it like historical, like world class movies. I probably have to say Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. But of the newer genre, Dune 1 and Dune 2 were incredible. I can't wait for Dune, like the finale. That was an epic movie.
I haven't seen two as yet. I've seen one. It's
Oh, you got to go. It's incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
I check it out. Favorite book?
Ayn Rand, Fountainhead.
Hmm.
It's a little bit older again, but it's a really cool one. If I was going to have to pick a newer one, and this is so weird for a guy who's like a finance guy, but I love the Sarah J. Maas fantasy books, Throne of Glass or Rose and Thorns, like any of those type I find fascinating, like Dune. Um, anyhow, I gave
Awesome.
you more than one, but
And when you're not working at DeFi Technologies, what are you doing for fun?
working out, and I adore fishing. I just got back from a fishing trip.
Nice. Russell,
Yeah,
pleasure chatting with you. Excited about the future updates around DeFi Technologies. I love the Bitcoin treasury strategy.
yeah.
We'll have
Thank
to
you.
have you back on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having us. Love doing this, and absolutely would come back anytime.